Hello and welcome to this video. Now in today's video, I talk about developing the courage and the strength for possessing your promise. So developing the courage and the strength to possess your promise. In the book of Joshua, the Bible talks about how Moses died and how Joshua took over the leadership of Israel. And Joshua's exclusive mandate was to take the Israelites to the promised land that God had promised them. Now, God had on purpose taken the Israelites through a much longer journey than probably they thought was necessary later with the benefit of hindsight. And we read from Exodus chapter 13, verse 17, that the reason why God took them through a much longer route was because God was concerned and knew that if they faced wars and adversity in their travels, they would easily give up on the promise of going to their promised land. So to train them through the different experiences of traveling through the wilderness and the opportunities, for example, for God's provision in their lives, for them to increase their faith, God took them through a much longer route. And the lesson that we learn from here is that life is like a journey which is not always straightforward. Sometimes we go round in circles, we go round in turns. Sometimes people that you start a certain journey in a season of your life may advance and make progress whilst you will still be wandering about, so to speak, in your wilderness. And all these have a purpose to train you and to develop your competences to be able to maximize your potential once you arrive at the ultimate destination. But one important point that we need to stress is that life is not meant to be a journey that never ends. At some point, we must come to the destiny that God has ordained for us. At some point, like the Israelites, we need to come to that place of rest, that promised land, that land of destiny. Now, this land of destiny would differ for different people. So for some people, it would be in the business sense when they come to a point of rest where they are successful, extremely successful, probably exactly the way they planned and envisaged things to be. And I believe that everybody must aspire to that sort of rest, that place of rest, that place of inheritance, that place of promise where you believe that God is leading you to come towards. So in the book of Joshua chapter 1, this is Joshua's first experience of leadership, and God reminds him of the mandate. Now the first charge that God gives Joshua is to arise and then to move. So in life is never meant to be stagnant. We're never meant to be in one place and stay there forever, however comfortable, however difficult the circumstances may be. It comes to a point where, like the Israelites, you need to rise and then to go over that Jordan, to go over any obstacles and hindrances that keep you from your promised land, from your ultimate place of rest and destiny. In Joshua chapter 1 verse 2, and we read, Moses, my servant, is dead. Now, therefore, arise, go over this Jordan, you and all the people, to the land which I'm giving to them, the children of Israel. Every place that the sole of your foot will tread upon I have given you, as I said to Moses, from the wilderness and this Lebanon as far as the great river, the river Euphrates, all the land of the Hittites, and to the great sea, toward the going down of the sun, shall be your territory. No man shall be able to stand before you all the days of your life. So this is the task that God is reminding Joshua of. And the first thing, as I stress, is the need to arise and to move. To be able to get to that ultimate place of destiny, the place of your promise, to that inheritance that you believe God has called you to or is calling you to, the first task is to arise, is to take action. So without action, there is no achievement. So it is important, especially if you feel stuck, that you decide and to purpose in your heart to take that critical action that is necessary to be able to propel you forwards. I was watching a video last night on one of the social media platforms in which somebody was encouraging and motivating that one thing that Christians need to stop doing is to stop praying for prosperity. And on the face of it, it might sound like it is not true, but if you listen to the guy's explanation, it makes complete sense. Because some Christians are in the habit of just praying, talking, and taking no action. The Bible says that show me your faith by your works. So faith, prayer must be backed by action. And here is why God is calling Joshua that arise and go over this Jordan. Now, Jordan might be something that whenever you come to, you balk and you hesitate. Your Jordan might be something that has become a hindrance and obstacle that keeps you from even arising to take action. But before I talk about the two key strategies or the plans of your strategy, it is important, first of all, that you take action. Because without action, there is no achievement in the first place. So once you take action and you begin to address your Jordan, once you begin to take the action to overcome whatever hindrances, whatever obstacles, there are two key things that I want to remind you about what God told Joshua. In verses 6, 7, and 9, the theme and the message here is the same. If you go to verse 6, the Bible says that be strong and of good courage. Be strong and of good courage. Now, as if God felt that Joshua may not have completely gotten or understood the message. So if you go to verse 7, it says again, only be strong and very courageous. If you go further down in verse 9, the Bible says, have I not commanded you, be strong and of good courage? Do not be afraid nor dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. So this is a clear instruction with lots of emphasis about the need not to fear. And there are sometimes, many circumstances in life that cause us to fear. It might be something that has happened in the past, previous experience, that you feel might play out again if you begin to take the necessary action. It might be fear of people you work with, people in family. And I must say that there are certain people, sometimes in the professional setting, in the workplace, people who want to instill fear as a mark or style of leadership. And what it does is that it can make you feel cowed into submission and reluctant to take the necessary and relevant action that you need to take. When you work and relate to people like that, you find yourself making mistakes when you don't have to. you might relate to it. There are certain people that you find that when you are in their company, you find it difficult to make the right, decisions, they take the right actions because of sometimes the fear that those people are able to imbibe in you, whether consciously, unconsciously. And you may find, for example, that there are certain kids who, depending on the parental style that their parents have used, whenever they are in their parents' presence, they are filled with fear, they make mistakes, the things that they fear most, the mistakes that they don't want to make, because they're trying to please their parents, is what inevitably they would make. So fear is very serious. It has a debilitating effect that can sometimes cripple. It can cripple innovation, initiative, and for some people, they are so afraid that the only thing they are comfortable to do is just to stay in bed. The charge today is arise and go over this Jordan. Be strong, fear not. Now, there are different translations of these two very key words, be strong and then be courageous. The Good News translation is one version I like, where being strong, is interpreted as be determined. Be courageous is interpreted as be confident. So from the Good News translation, those words read, be determined and be confident. And these two are very important in the life of anyone who wants to attain any level of success, to reach the ultimate destination in life that they believe they are destined to get to. I would want to give two quick examples on the Bible of two people, two personalities, and the very different outcomes that their actions, and then the spirit in which they took their actions resulted in. The first example I refer to is the story of David and Goliath, which is a very common example. Everybody's heard about that story. In 1 Samuel chapter 17, verse 34, after David had maneuvered his way onto the battlefield, against all the efforts by his brothers and family to keep him away, he finds himself right at the very front of the battle. And he's having a conversation with Saul, who somehow doubts his ability to go forward. And I like the reference, the allusion to previous accomplishments that David makes. Now, David told Saul that since I've been away from this battlefront, I've been keeping my father's livestock. And when a lion and a bear, now the way he puts it, it doesn't mean it was just the ones. He puts it to suggest that there had been several instances, how many we don't know, but it wasn't just a one-off thing, because if it was a one-off, then you can say that he was lucky, he had a lucky break and all. But it says that every time a lion and a bear has come to attack, now it says that I have not just fought them, I have gone after them. And I've torn them apart and I've rescued my animals. So this gave him some confidence. What had happened in the past, what David had been able to accomplish in the past, gave him that confidence that he was able to replicate it, if needs be, against the Philistine giant. Now this filled him with some determination. David typifies what exactly the words used by the Bible when it says that be strong. He was strong. He could face wild animals with his bare hands, with no tools, no firearms, nothing. So that was raw strength. In contemporary times, not all of us would be fighting such physical battles, because the Bible says that the weapons of our warfare are not carnal. The battle itself is not carnal. So we may not necessarily need physical strength like David exhibited, but we need mental, emotional strength and determination in depth to succeed. Now, no matter how many times you may be knocked down in the battle of life, we need that steely determination. And that is what the Bible is talking about, strength in our times. Every winner in sports, for example, in boxing, the greatest fighters, the greatest champions are survivors. They've got determination. Before an international bout, a competitive bout, they would normally do what they call the weigh-in. When the boxers will come head to head, they measure, they do all the measurements, and then they stand toe to toe, sometimes back to back, sometimes they are stood in each other's faces. And each of the boxers will try to instill some fear. That might be in the facial expression, anything they can do to instill some fear in you even before the fight. Which is why it is important that we must be on our guard against anything that would want to make us timid, whether it is a person or circumstances. We must be wary of these, and we must be able to overcome them. David was able to challenge all these situations because he knew that he had God with him. He knew that he had done it before. I mentioned that in our times, we are not necessarily fighting physical battles. So we need that physical, the mental strength. So no matter how many times, I was recently watching a unifying, a heavyweight boxing contest between two really great fighters. Now the bigger one, was the awesome favorite to win the bout. Very early on in round 6, he gave an uppercut, a really dangerous one, which dazed his smaller opponent. But this smaller opponent was able to survive that. Now he landed a few blows of his in the course of the fight. In one round, he was able to even knock down the bigger opponent. And that is an example of determination. Now, even though this smaller fighter encountered a lot of hard blows to his face, he was determined to survive and then to go on. And ultimately, he won. And he became the unified champion in the heavyweight division. So the point I make is that to be a successful champion in anything, you must have determination. And beyond the determination, you must have the confidence, the courage, the boldness to take action. Now, these two are critical to your ultimate success. Without determination and without courage, without boldness, you cannot succeed in anything. These are the two critical factors that keep so many Christians, so many business leaders, so many parents, so many people who want to achieve and need to achieve in life from their achievements, from the place of promise and inheritance that they need to ultimately get to. And it's my strong encouragement to you to develop these two. David alluded to past success. Sometimes we need to look back at the past examples, the places where God has taken us and what God has been to us. However small the successes are, we need to celebrate these because these are what would propel us to go on to even greater achievements. Now, one thing that we must be cautious about is to look at the wind. The Bible says that if you look at the wind, you won't sow. The second example of the personality in the Bible is the story of Peter. Peter had seen Jesus do miracles, and I'm sure he wanted to do some himself. So one day he sees Jesus at one end and he says that, if it is you, Master, can you please ask me to come to you and to walk on the water? And Jesus says, why not? Go for it. Now, Peter does well initially. He starts walking and he achieves some success. But the Bible says that unfortunately at some point, rather than keeping his eyes on Jesus, the destination, Peter begins to look at the winds. And immediately the Bible says that he began to sink until Jesus reached out and held him. So it's important that we keep our focus on Jesus. The Bible says that he is the author and the finisher of our faith. Let us not look at the circumstances around us. The psalmist says that I lift my eyes to the hills. Don't look at the winds. Look at the hills, to the creator of heaven and earth, who is able to save you. What are the circumstances around? It might be people around you causing drama and distracting you. Keep your focus. Don't look at the winds, but look at the author and the finisher. Keep your focus on Jesus. If we go back to Joshua chapter 1, verse 9, the very ending of that, the Bible says that for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. Now, that should be your clad iron assurance that you cannot fail because God is with you. Earlier on, God told Joshua that I'm going to be with you just as I was with Moses. All of Moses' achievements could be traced to the fact that God was with him. And God was telling Joshua that if you remember this, that I am with you, you would never fail. And that is also my encouragement with you, that remember that God is with you. Now, if you don't feel that presence, then that is important that you cultivate that presence. The Bible says that draw near to God and he draws near to you. So take that step to get closer to God, to have God on your side. Sometimes in a battle, and I've seen it in recent examples of wars, that it is not who you fight against that counts, but it is who is with you. It is who is supplying you with armor and the weapons to go forward with. That is important. So with God on your side and in your camp, remember that failure is not an option. No matter the circumstances around, no matter what people may seek to do, remember that with God on your side, you are more than a conqueror and you are able to go forward and to achieve. The Bible says that God tells us that we don't have the spirit of fear, but of power and of boldness. He says you've got the spirit of power and of a sound mind, of power and discipline. So whatever makes you feel scared and afraid to go forward, remember that you've got the power, and if you would apply the discipline that the Spirit of God gives, you are well and able to overcome every opposition and then to get to your promised land and to your destiny. Well, that is about all that we've got time for. Thank you very much for your time watching this. I hope you found this useful. If you found it useful and a blessing, and I'll encourage you to subscribe to this channel and then to share this video with others. And hopefully we will all be blessed. God bless you. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.